Welcome to the Delirious Wrap-Up series, where we look back on the madness, the magic, and the miles that made up the 2025 Delirious West. Over the past 6 months, we've followed the journey of some truly incredible athletes as they trained, tapered, and towed the line for one of the wildest 200-mile races in the world. Now, the dots have stopped moving, the dust has settled, mostly, and it's time to hear what really happened out there, on the trails, at the aid stations, and deep in those delirious moments. Whether they finished, fought through every step, or made the tough call to stop, we're celebrating the grit, the lessons, and the community that makes this event unforgettable. So grab a coffee or a recovery beverage of your choice and join us as we relive the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Today on Fit Mind, Fit Body, we have a little switcheroo where, as I've just done a rather large event, my daughter Nikki is making yet another guest appearance on the show so that she can interview me and grill me to see how the event went and how I'm feeling about it. So, Nikki, welcome back.
Thanks, Mum. Thanks for having me. And yeah, surprise, surprise to all the listeners. I am once again back, returning to interview Mother on the most recent event.
You're going to be kind to me.
Can only try. I think that you get a few days leeway. We're on the second day of, is it second day of recovery, or are you considering this your first day due to the fact that you only finished yesterday?
I finished just over 24 hours ago, I suppose. So
I'm sure I can go easy on you for a few days yet.
Thank you.
Well, first off, let's kickstart by saying congratulations, Mum. You have achieved the somewhat, some would consider unachievable, incredible 200-miler.
Well, can I just point out that my watch said I ran 300.
Okay, we're going to get to the T's and C's where Strava's decided she might have done 350 Ks instead of the I thought you were doing 326 and thought I was counting down that 326, but it appears you did slip in another 24 at some point in that schedule.
Maybe getting lost did that, but anyway, we can talk about that.
Chasing on the spot. Yeah, station sees up.
Exactly.
Anyway, I digress. So on the subject of the fact that it's now 24 hours since you passed the finish line, how is it that you're feeling?
I don't feel too bad. All my muscles are quite good. I've got a few aches and pains, but nothing like you get from a marathon, which is interesting. You know, that real sort of dead legged thing that even the 100K that I did last year, I feel better than that, apart from my feet, because I've got a bunch of blisters and my feet were quite sore and a bit swollen last night. So I suppose maybe my feet are a little bit more damaged. And if I ever do something like this again, I might need to look at how to make that not the case. So, yeah, I feel pretty good.
Okay. So is the aches and pains that you're experiencing what you had expected? Comparing to your 100K, is there much of a difference between what you're now feeling and what you felt after the 100K? From memory, you did have a few other niggles after the 100K.
I did. I had the knee thing, didn't I? And then you and your dad dragged me out to breakfast, and I felt like even getting out of the car, let alone across the street to the cafe, was quite a challenge. Today, it's not so bad. I'm still hobbling a bit, as I said, because of the blisters, but it's different. It's not muscle pain so much as just the blistery sort of pain in my feet. If I could just walk around in thongs, which I should have brought with me, I'd be all right. I don't know if you saw, but at the event, you get one thong when you cross the line as well. So I have one thong, but I would probably need two if I was going to use them as my shoes.
I think that's definitely a fair thought, definitely. And I'm not sure how you managed to miss out a pair of shoes to wear after the fact.
Well, I have got them, but I've got slides. I got slides, and the slides, This one of my blisters is on the side of my foot, so it's a bit annoying.
I see. Yeah. I understand. All right. Well, looking at this event, I think it's probably one of the most extreme that I've found personally within Australia. So I think reflecting on that, I think we're all quite curious as to why. Why this event? Why did you decide this is what you were going to do? What is it that made you commit?
That's so many questions in one.
Well, the why? What's the why behind the drive?
The why is long and complicated, like it is for many people, and changes as well, I should say. For me, because of the podcast, I somehow started talking to a bunch of people from Western Australia because somebody was recommended and they recommended somebody else. And then I spoke to Sean Kessler, who is the race is his brainchild. He's the race director and makes everything happen. The Pied Piper, as I heard someone refer to him this week. And it just seemed really special the way everybody talked about it, that it was a massive event surrounded by amazing people in beautiful scenery, and that you would have a life-changing experience if you did it. And as you know, I'm always after different kinds of positive life-changing experiences if possible, especially things that teach us more about ourselves. So I was already thinking, oh, that would be great. And I did love the way Sean would say, and we've made the cutoffs as long as possible, as generous as possible, so that everybody would have an opportunity to experience this kind of event, where you travel such a long distance under your own steam. Which, attracted me because I'm not a particularly fast runner, especially over a long distance. And I'm getting older, which is weird. So there was that. And then I had a couple of other people on who'd all done the event a number of times. And then I had Big Kev, and he said something last year about how it was really just a moving picnic, and that all of the 20-odd aid stations competed for the best food. And I thought, so number one, they have like really generous cutoffs. And number two, it's all about the food. It's just like a bit like the French one where you just have a marathon where they go around all the vineyards and they try a glass of wine at each vineyard as part of the marathon. They do like a ridiculous number of, I don't know how you do that. Anyway, it's a bit like that. And I thought, that sounds pretty cool. So I'm going to give that a go. We're parked on the side of the road. I'm not sure if anyone can actually hear that. I've got my good microphone with me, so hopefully you didn't. Big truck just went past. So the combination of those two things of Kev and Sean and a lot of the people that I talked to from the community who had already done the event made me see just what an amazing experience it would be, and something that I wanted to give a go. And, it's extreme, and I wanted to get out there and see whether I could do it, like to push my limits. I've got a great coach, as you know, and Amy, and I knew that I could trust her, and if I just followed the process, that I could get to the line without an injury, which was really important. And then, the rest, I would get fitter as I went along, and that's kind of what happened. So that's the why. I wanted to explore not just what my body would do, but also what my mind would do, because this kind of event is almost as much about your mind as it is about your body.
Yeah. No, I completely can resonate with that. Not that I've done anything to the extremities of which you have now. However, I know that I've definitely been in that own mind game myself when long distance running and undertaking some events that have been of a longer distance.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts? You're at the start line, like leading up. Is there any thoughts during your training, your final training, getting to the start line? What's going through your mind?
There's so much to organize. Oh my Lord. I've got your dad organized. I've got to and then I get on the podcast, which has been a blessing because I've got all of these people who've already done the event before, and they're all giving me lots of advice. People are sending me lots of messages on Facebook, also giving me lots of advice. So I wasn't lacking advice, but people kept saying new things I hadn't even thought of. Like, you need spare bladders just in case your bladder breaks. You need spare bottles because you don't want to be stuck out there with some of these things you can't replace. So now I had to borrow one from you. Actually, I borrowed your pack and I borrowed your bladder as my extras. Luckily, I didn't need to use them. But I bought myself new, cheaper poles, but there's still spare ones in case something happened to my poles, because I didn't want to do the event without my poles. And then just the pure logistics. I do not know how people do this event without at least somebody to crew them. But you've got like T-shirts and shorts and socks and all the things you want to change into. And then you've got your nutrition and how to sort it out so that somebody else, because you won't have any brain once you come into an aid station, you're not thinking, well, not very well anyway. So someone else can step in and look after you in the best way to make it as smooth as possible for you to get through the aid station and leave it without thinking, oh no, I didn't change my socks, or oh no, I should have put on some Glide, or all that kind of stuff. So having a wonderful support person, and your dad was just pointing to himself in the background, was awesome. And he really did step up, plus with a lot of help from the other crew around to support him too. He seemed to be having a good time, apart from the fact that he's a bit deaf and he was worried that he couldn't hear what some people were saying. So that's about it. So going through my mind leading up to it, there was a lot of chaos because it's not like an event in your backyard either. You know, we had to hire a van and all of that. Some people slept in the sleep stations, whereas, you know, having the van to sleep in, I think, made it much easier. I would have found it really difficult if I'd had to sleep in the sleep stations, because it would have been harder to go to sleep, I think, for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough.
What was I thinking? But probably I get really nervous before the start of an event, like literally just before. Because though this community is so welcoming and so friendly, and a lot of them had been listening to the podcast, so I didn't feel like I was stepping into a place where I didn't know anyone, even though I hadn't met anyone in person before. You know, I was getting hugs left, right, and centre from all these people because they'd listened to the podcast and things. But I believe they're probably the same kind of people. They would have come up and given me a hug and said hello and introduced themselves, whether I, you know, had run the podcast or not. They're just that kind of community. They're really welcoming and caring. So I feel very fortunate to have fallen into that space. So I wasn't as nervous perhaps as I would have been otherwise, because I felt there's a lot of support around me, which was lovely. Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear, because I do know, having previously not only witnessed you at the start line, but also been around, that you do get a few jitters, nervy jitters leading up to an event. So it's really great that the community of running is able to reassure you in those moments. So I do have a few questions that I've sort of put myself to prompt and sort of dive in deeper to this experience that you've gone through, not only for my own learning, because I haven't yet asked or questioned too much, but also for all the listeners. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was the sort of stages of thought that you were going through during this event. Was there anything that really stuck out for you as far as where your mind was taking you during these moments? Was it sort of different in stages as far as different stages of the run, or did you find that there was repetitive patterns within your mind? Like, how was it?
Well, going through 4 nights, there's definitely lots of swings and roundabouts. Like you said, it wasn't the same all the way through, and each night wasn't the same all the way through. And we had sunshine and we had rain and we had wind. We had a whole lot of stuff. Luckily, we didn't get like super hot most days. Otherwise, I probably would have melted. So we did go through lots of physical stages on the outside. On the inside, I think probably halfway through, I was starting to think, I don't know if I can make this. You know, my blisters are sore and all of that. And you get all that doubt stuff that comes up. I think we all do. And it's almost like, not only can I not make it, but I don't have to do this. You start talking to yourself and it's like, I don't have to do this. Why am I doing this? This is so silly. There are people at home tucked up in their lounge rooms watching the telly, being comfortable. And here am I traipsing through the forest at 1:30 in the morning with a head torch on, keeping my eye out for snakes slithering across the thing and dodging orb spiders above me and the odd owl that seemed to like to talk to me as well. So it was kind of that that stuff was going on in my head, that where you're trying to talk yourself out of it. I was listening, interestingly, I said this to a couple of the other athletes. I was listening to some Norwegian crime novel at one point, and anyone who knows anything about it's quite dark. So the way they tell stories is quite dark. And so I'm running through the bush and, you know, there's owls flying around and frogs making lots of noise. So many frogs there, actually, at night time. It was crazy. And I was like, I'm just feeling a bit flat. And then for some reason, my phone, the next time I turned it on, flicked over to just music. And it went into my playlist. And I went, I feel great now. And the next thing I know, I'm bouncing down the track and actually running, which was impressive. And even dancing. At one point, I was dancing down the trail and dancing down the beach, and I'm thinking, I'm so glad there's nowhere near me because I'm singing and I don't have the best singing voice. So I was just in joy. So I found that the second half, I used a lot of music. When I started to feel down, to answer your question, like feel that this isn't something that I want to do. Why am I doing this? This is so silly. I just put some music on and just kept going forward, which was great. Yeah. So that's sort of, yes, there were a lot of things going on, but it was mostly me self-doubt, talking to myself. I never really thought I couldn't do it. It was more I didn't want to do it. I don't want this pain to go, which is a mind thing. Like I don't want this pain in my feet and whatever else to continue for another 2 days. I don't want this. It wasn't that I couldn't, I just don't want it. Which is really your mind saying you can't. And I was like, that's not true. I can. So I listened to some music and then I felt better. Does that make sense?
Looking at the stats, it's incredible about how many times our mind will sell us short before the body actually does as well.
That's even there. Somebody says something about when we think we're done, we're only about 25% done. We've got at least another 70%.
Well, it's definitely interesting to also hear about your different experiences throughout your different thoughts and even moods throughout. Hearing about your Norwegian true crime, I thought you were about to break out some PBs in that distance. Maybe for the middle of the night, that'd make you speed up.
Running away from something.
It's also quite funny in some regards from my own perspective, hearing you talk of your self-doubt, as I know, although I have nothing in the calendar currently, I went out for a few runs while you were on your continuous run. And at times I thought, oh, this is so hard. Why am I even doing this? And I thought, oh, what am I talking about? I'm doing like 6Ks. Mum's out doing like 320 something. Like I've really got no excuse. But, it just goes to show that our mind can quickly sort of play those games of self-doubt and trying to sell us short. It doesn't seem to matter what the distance. It's still the same. Exactly. Mind battle, but it's obviously severity increases with the distance.
I think it's one of the other runners, and it is a little bit like that, but it's what you perceive. Like I went into a 200-mile race. I knew I was out there for 200 miles.
Yeah.
If I lined up to that. So when you go out for a 6K run, you're going out there for a 6K run, and most of us in our head, once it's finished, we go, oh, that was hard. I'm glad that's all done. But it's because when we set out, it was 6K. If that had somehow turned into 12K because, I don't know, something happened and you had to go a different way home or something, you'd be like, oh, I'm so exhausted now. But, so it's completely about perception and what your perception of what you're about, the effort you're about to put in, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think I can completely relate to that with my long runs that I've done in the past. Even just the way that the kilometres tick over when you know that you're going out for a 20-something kilometre run or whatever it might be in training or even in a real event, the kilometres seem to not have the same gravity depending on how many there is. Other times I feel like they're clicking away a lot easier as well.
Mm-hmm. So
definitely can.
That is something I forgot to do and I was kicking myself. Glenn, who's one of my podcast guests, he suggested that I turn off the reminder that it's, that your lap thing, like every hour. So, which was, I forgot though. So every 1K I was being told how many Ks I'd just done. I went, oh, I don't want to know yet. Because they seem to get longer and longer, before I got the next reminder for a K. And I was like, oh my gosh. Anyway, again, that's mind trick stuff. And we could, there are things I could have done to stop that being an issue for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that leads into the question I had around the strategies for the kilometres and how it was that you sort of chose to break them down. I don't know if everyone does that, but I know that's something that I sort of do with the mind games is different ways of breaking down a kilometre and even different ways of which I'm timing a run. So did you have any strategy for this? Obviously, what were we, 3.5, nearly 4 days? Was there a strategy that you had sort of to approach the amount of kilometres or make it seem more obtainable to yourself?
I did a lot of breaking it up. I think that's probably what most people do. Sean, the race director, gave really good advice, and that was just think about the next aid station. So no aid station tended to be more than maybe 20, 25 kilometers away. Often they were even less. So it was just, I've got to get to the next aid station. And when you're just focusing on that, that sort of breaks it up to quite reasonable chunks already. But also things like whenever little milestones came up, like, oh, my longest race in the past was 103. Well, I got to 103 quite quickly. So, well, not quickly, but in the event, in the space of the event, 103 was, well less than a third of the entire event. So I got there and I went, oh, that's amazing. And then every time like a big zero clicked over and I saw it on my watch, I bet, oh, that's so exciting. So little celebrations of those kind of moments. And then often once you're halfway through, I start ticking off what's to come, and I feel a bit better because I know I've already done half of it. Yeah, I didn't like. I think my strategies for this one were mostly around what Sean said, and it was where the next aid station is, and when the next time is I was going to see your dad, and he would be able to give me what I needed. I could fill my brain up with like, now when I see your dad again, I need to make sure that he has a change of socks for me, or I need to make sure that we lubricate under my arm or whatever. And then I would fill my brain with that so that I wouldn't forget once I got to see your dad.
Did that work for you? Because I know I've had exact same thoughts going into where you're crewing me previously. And before I know it, I'm out of the aid station. I've completely forgot to bring up what it was that I'd just been niggling me for the last 5K. So did you find that constant reminder actually worked for you?
I'm pretty sure that I did forget a few things, but now I've forgotten what they were. That I wanted him to. Oh, it was things like oranges. I wanted oranges, but I didn't want to feel it myself. And then I came back one time, and he'd gone and bought me an orange, and he just gave it to me and sat on my lap for the entire time they were in the aid station because I had no energy or mind or ability to peel the orange myself. And I think I ate the orange this morning. That particular orange. So I never actually ate the orange out there. I had to go and eat them from the aid station because I couldn't deal with a full orange at all. There was no dealing with it. He did get me orange juice though. I asked for that and that it turned up and that was easier to get
magically
than a whole orange. I can't remember that I ran away from the aid station and hadn't got what I needed because your dad was really good at that. As you know, he's pretty good at predicting things and he had a lot of support around him as well, so which was great. No, I can't think of anything that I left the aid station thinking, oh, I really wish I had, charged my insurance.
Okay, pretty good. You've done well. You've done better than I have historically anyway.
I was worried. I think one of them I almost left without my watch. That would have been a disaster. Because you charged it most times when I stopped, depending on where it was at, probably maybe every second stop or something, and make sure that it was going to keep going because as you know, last year it stopped 2Ks from the end.
Yes, as I've said to Mum since when I didn't see the Strava update straight away, I've told her she was going to have to redo the run. If it wasn't going on Strava, it didn't count.
I could have done it in
just joking.
No, that sounds horrible.
All right, so I've got some questions around the expectation versus reality. So is there any sort of things where you had sort of a preconceived expectation and what was it to the reality?
I thought 350 kilometers wasn't really that far. But when I got out there, it's quite a long way.
You measured that against Tasmania.
I know. There's been people who said, oh, it's kind of basically to Hobart and back.
Yeah, I don't think that's too far off either.
Yeah, I suppose it is. And then I think, because I grew up on a tiny island where it's like 30 kilometers across and 70 up and back. I said to someone the other day, you couldn't do this. You'd have to go round and round and round and round.
A few laps, I reckon.
Exactly, yeah. So that idea of space, and you realise how big Australia is and how far 350 kilometres was. Like, I'm going to keep saying 350 because that's what I did. I know everyone else did.
I can see that you're seizing that moment. And
I'm taking that and running with it.
Maybe in a few weeks we'll bring it back, but at this point you can keep running with it for the moment.
Probably. I was really worried about sleep. Like, to me, once I realised I was going to get to the start line without any injury that was really bad, like a funny knee and stuff, but it was good. it was sleep because I really like my sleep. And if I don't get, I don't know, at least 6 hours, maybe 6.5, I prefer 7.5. I'm kind of narky, which is not like me. And I feel sick. I feel quite unwell when I haven't had enough sleep. So we needed a strategy, and your dad and I decided to try for 2 hours a night, which seemed a lot more than the other zombie runners around me, I will say. And some of you will be listening to this podcast, but they had a lot less sleep than me. Um, but I will say I felt much fresher after having each sleep. So even just 2 hours, I thought, like what I thought was when your dad woke me up after 2 hours or the alarms went off because he went to sleep as well. I would feel groggy, that horrible groggy feeling if you had enough sleep, and that's horrible feeling. But I think it felt like I had a job, like it was okay. The alarms got off. This is what I do. I get out of bed, out of the camper. I get your dad tapes my feet up again, all my toes. I put my socks on and my clothes in, and I head off, and that's it. Like I check all my water, everything. I trust that your dad's filled my bag with the things that needed to be in it, and the nutrition and the hydration and stuff, and I go. That's just what I do. So that was a good reality versus like what happened versus what I thought was going to happen. I thought I would really, really be bad at that. I wasn't bad at that. It was fine. And it might have been, as you said before, that I put a plan in place and tried to make that good rather than really bad because I did close my eyes a couple of times while I was running, which probably wasn't wise. I closed my eyes because I was feeling tired, and I thought I'm just going to close my eyes for a second, like a micro nap while I was running. It just is not wise. There are people around me, like
sandy beach with nothing else, no obstacles.
It was a trail in the forest, I think, which is probably again not wise. There were people around me though having dirt naps, so I had to tippy toe past them. So they just pull off to the side of the trail and lie down for 15 minutes. They set their alarm, which is really cute. I just never did that because I was like, I just want to get to the bed. I just want to get to the bed to lie down. So I had a total of 8.5 hours sleep in the 4 days across 4 nights. And last night, I'll tell you, I was a zombie. I was just a zombie. It's terrible. But
no
anyway.
blame whatsoever. I think I struggle with less than 8 hours a night. So the idea of spreading that over 4 days is
it's a struggle.
Quite horrific. In fact, I think it must be hereditary to be quite snappy and almost feel a bit sick when you have a lack of sleep because I know that I can relate to what you're talking about.
Cool. Probably one of the other things was, and this was probably Big Kev's fault, he built up so much how great the food was at all the aid stations. And I'll tell you, the food was amazing. I had this most delicious chicken and mango fried rice. So good. Anyway, the problem I had was I've been running for many, many days and I never felt hungry at all at any stage. So I had all this delicious food around me and these lovely, wonderful volunteers. They were all amazing. And they would say, what can we get for you, Michelle? I'm like, oh, I'm not really that hungry. It was just like, felt so bad because I wasn't that hungry. And then your dad would have to come up and almost shove a hash brown down my mouth to make me eat something. Because I knew that I had to. So it's that funny thing where you know that you should be eating because you're doing this thing that's requiring lots of energy and calories. But you don't want to. Luckily, I managed to still have food and I don't get stomach problems. Particularly, I didn't throw up or feel sick or anything. So I did eat plenty of food. It's just I didn't really feel like it. And the way Kev had talked about it, I'd get to the next aid station and it'd be just like, oh, yay, another food buffet. I can't wait. But it didn't work out for me. At least I didn't feel like it.
I know that I'm definitely similar with you. And I remember you crewing me and pretty much telling me off for not eating enough. And I would run off to know that I'm going to see you at the next aid station. You'd be checking my pack. So I'd be like almost dry reaching at food that I was trying to eat while I was running down the track because I knew you'd be grumpy if it wasn't gone.
And as a result, you finished that race and in the time that you're happy with.
I did not enjoy everything I thought I was going to enjoy and all the sweet treats along the way, which I had previously looked forward to and no longer desirable.
Yeah.
So I can completely agree and resonate with how you were in that moment. And I can only imagine how that is when it goes over multiple days.
Talking about treats, just while I think about it, the wonderful Shannon Dale presented me with a bag that said dirty socks at the end of the race yesterday. But inside that bag that said dirty socks was three most delicious pastries, and they've been the best recovery food you could ever ask for.
Wow.
So good.
After you've been all above the,
I
I'm
have.
definitely say no to pastry. All right, so fears and anxieties. So I know that you've obviously spoken to the fact that you felt you needed to plan pretty well. You might have had some concerns over different parts of your sleep, but was there any other sort of fears and anxieties that you went throughout or at any stage within the event?
I don't I don't think so. Like I don't get super like I never doubted that I could finish it if I really wanted to. And the only thing that would stop me, and I call myself a lazy runner, and I think I really am. I kind of like, and people say that's stupid. We go and we do these crazy things, but if there's an easy way out, I'll try and take it. So it's that kind of lazy runner. So I don't push myself maybe as much as other people do. And as a result, I have more energy at the end. So I recover well and things like that. But I don't get super anxious about that particular perspective.
Okay.
I turned up to the last two aid stations, and your dad was one up there and the second time asleep. And I had to volunteer, went up the hill to wake him up. And then she came back and she seemed a little bit frightened because, as you know, your dad's 6'4", quite a big bloke, and he'd peppered her with questions like, "What does she need? Why didn't she wake me up?" When I'd gone past, I didn't even know he was in the van. I was just focused on the aid station, as I said. So the first time he didn't turn up, I was like, "Oh, I hope he's okay, and that he hasn't had an accident." So there was an element of being concerned about him, not just because of the times he wasn't there, but because he was navigating roads at night time, and he hasn't had a lot of sleep either. And the crew, they work, well, almost as hard as runners. There's probably something to be said for maybe harder than runners at times, because they're trying to navigate all of these unusual things at unusual times without very much sleep or information, not knowing where their runner might be, not knowing if the track is working properly, wanting to have a sleep but not calculating how fast your runner is. That was your dad. He underestimated me by an hour, so, which was quite funny, really. So, but yeah, I don't think I wasn't afraid of falling over. I wasn't afraid of getting an injury. I wasn't even afraid of not finishing, because that would just make a bigger story. Like I would just like, well, I didn't finish because I'm a lazy runner and I'm slack. But I did feel like if I wasn't going to finish, if I was going to pull out, it had to be something apart from me just not wanting to finish. So at one point, I do remember maybe, and this might be the delirious. That's right. I'm like, because I was coming like second or something. He got bit they thought he was bit by a snake and he had to be pulled off the course. So that's not good. But it turned out it was a stick. So
it wasn't
his race was over. So that's not nice. But I think many runners may have thought this, whether they say it or not. I was like, oh, what if I just fall over here and break my leg? Then I have an excuse for not bloody race. It's hard. Anyway.
Extreme, but
then I was like, well, no, I'm too. No.
Oh no, I don't have insurance cover for WA.
Oh, that's right. I don't. I'm
not
going to do that. And my bones don't break very well anyway. They don't break at all. I've never had a broken bone, so I wasn't likely to happen. So I do, things like that, I suppose. But yeah, I just don't entertain that stuff very much, really, in my head.
Yep.
Anxiety and fear. As you know, whenever you tell me you're worried about something, I say get over it pretty quick.
Yeah, she's pretty understandable in those environments. That's quite funny as well. And I will cheekily say, knowing that I'm in earshot of Dad, that it sounds like the last two aid stations were the treatment that I got for the gone nuts, where he either sat on his phone and didn't notice I'd run past, or didn't turn up at all.
Oh, it's so sad. He doesn't care. He's
that's great tour. I'll have to try it out sometime. He did make it to my last event, so maybe the next one will be I'll have to summons him.
Well, he did an amazing job, I will say. I saw the hammock up at one point, but I never saw him in it.
Okay.
One of the other runners actually said, "Oh, I haven't seen the hammock yet." So have it up, but he was never in the hammock while I was around. So there you go.
Well, you definitely seem to be doing a good job of keeping me up to date with how you're doing as well, which was really lovely and reassuring.
Good.
All right. So, what was the motivation to keep you going?
It's interesting you asked that, and I kept looking at my phone, like kept, but occasionally I pick up my phone for different things while I was running along. Oh, that's right, that's why, to just check the tracker to see where I am. So we had an app that just showed where we were, not where everyone else was, not the one that you guys were following, but where we
Oh,
were specifically. So because I had a habit of well, I got lost on the first day, so
okay.
so after
Yeah.
that I'd look at my phone quite regularly. So when I did look at my phone,
Sorry, just to clarify, was that where the extra 25K came from?
I don't think it was a full 25K. No, I think that
All
Dan
right.
and I got lost for maybe 2 to 3K. Might be. I need to look at my stats because I got an extra 25 from everybody else than everyone else. So yeah, I do need to look. I did do a few other sand dune climbs and stuff. Well, when I was running along with Paulo and Rob on a beach, we were trying to work out how to get off the beach. So that would have added another couple of K, but I'm not sure where the rest comes from, going around in circles somewhere. Like,
Okay, who knows? Maybe it
anyway,
was just
to
based on
go
the
back to the
12.
question, I was looking at the phone pretty regularly just to make sure I was on track. And those times when I hadn't seen a Biblum sign for or a piece of pink shiny tape for a while, and I would see messages from you and messages from my other daughter and my other kids. And I didn't open them as a rule because I didn't want to get into it. I often didn't have internet, so it might have just been it had flicked up there when I did have internet, and it was just sitting there. And then I remembered um, how important it is, the example we set for others. And that kept me going, if that makes sense. Like I knew everybody was home watching the dots, and it could have made me more anxious, could have made me like, oh no, everyone's watching and wanting to, do well. And it did make me want to do well, but not for any ego reason, but because I think it's important to be able to demonstrate that any of us, no matter who we are, can do whatever we want to, as long as we plan it and execute as well as we can, that anything is possible if you really want to do it. And this to me was a really good example of that to my children and my family and friends who were following me at home. It just reminded me of that. It made me feel amazing. Also, because as you know, my dad, your grandfather, died last year just after our event, the Gone Nuts event that you and I did. And at that time, I knew that he was very sick when we were during that event, and he died, within a couple of weeks of that event. So I have a ring on my hand and was able to run with that too. And so every time when I did feel down, sometimes I would look at that and, I could feel him there with me as well. So that was really nice. Feeling to like I didn't feel alone, even when, I was running alone quite a lot. I didn't feel alone. I felt like I had a lot of support from all of you, but also from Dad, and even my mum, your grandmother. She wanted me to take this little angel thing with me, and it was tucked away in the bottom of my bag. And I thought about that every now and then too. That was there, and so just I didn't feel alone. So even when I was alone, I didn't feel alone because of all of you, because of the amazing community that Delirious has created, that Sean's created this Delirious. I never felt alone. So yeah, I was able to get through any of those moments, which was great. And your
That's
dad,
lovely.
got to say your
Very
dad.
common.
Yeah, he was really supportive.
He was also very much looking forward to seeing you every aid station and tracking you and a little dot like I was when he wasn't with you. So we're all in on it, watching you at every move. And I know I even sent Dad a few panic messages when your dot didn't move after a few minutes here and there. Like, why is she not moving?
What was it like? I'll ask you that question. What is it like to watch a dot for that long, for 4 days, when you go to bed and you get it still there?
I made a point of checking it. Well, getting the dot ready, the tracker link, and sending you a message just moments before you sort of kick started. And initially I thought maybe your tracker was broken. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with myself for the following few days. But I soon realized it just needed a few minutes and it was up and going. And from that moment, I told my work colleagues not to expect any productivity from me, that I would be GPS dot my mum tracking for the next following days. But no, I think it was good. I think it took me a day or so to realize that I could still message you, because initially I was just like sort of just watching this dot, intentively waiting for you to sort of finish. But then I was like, you know what, I can actually send her some messages while she's going. So that's when I was sort of sending the messages as well. But I know a few times, like it was as soon as I woke up, which say 7 o'clock or so, or a bit earlier, I was waking up. First thing I did was check your dot, and I was always quite concerned when you hadn't moved. But then I had to remember that it was probably that 2 hours sleep that you were chasing in the early hours of WA time. Exactly. So I had to find my inner zen and keep calm. But a few times I did message Dad, quite concerned that you hadn't moved. But no, it was also really heartwarming, and especially coming in, like once you got to halfway as well, and then you seem to just glide the last few, well, I say few, but it was probably 40 plus, maybe 80 to 40 kilometers. I just felt like you were going so much quicker. And at one point, I have a giggle about it because I told Cam, it's probably an overshare on my end. I was on the treadmill in my apartment complex, and I actually had your tracker up on my screen of my phone while I was on the treadmill. And I was pushing myself to do like 440 something. And I said to Cam, I could have sworn Mum was going faster than me because I had to keep moving the screen because your little tracker would go off my phone screen. I'm like, I'm here dying, and I swear Mum's going quicker than me.
I don't think at any stage I was doing 440s. I don't know.
It was a bit better once I zoomed out a bit. But no, I think it was really great. And I mean, obviously we're here to support you regardless of whether you've got a tracker on or not, but it definitely helped us feel a bit more involved than being in a different state completely and only being able to sort of send the messages, but actually being able to see your active status as far as where you were progressing was really encouraging as well.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
It was really lovely and very inspiring.
That concept of watching a dot on a screen for multiple days, if you describe it to someone, it sounds like watching paint dry.
It is obsessive though. It's like it was I was invested in it. I know that your sister was invested in it. I had your brother calling me wanting to know what was going on because they were watching it. One of our family chats was going off its head with everyone wanting to know where you were, which line you were, what the numbers meant, whether it was miles or kilometers and whatever else was going on, because there was a simultaneous green line that went next to it, which was obviously for the 100-miler guys. Mm-hmm. So heaps of things going on, but no, I think that we all got very absorbed by the GPS dot named Michelle Frost travelling her way through southern WA.
Apart from you and I, not many of them are that interested in running, so that's quite interesting.
It's very true. You're not wrong. Although there is like quite sporty people in the family, you're not wrong with that statement. All right, so I've got a few more questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
I am wanting to know, what was something that was unexpected? What was the largest unexpected situation or scenario, anything about the run? What something happened or took place where you really didn't expect it?
I've already mentioned the music, because I don't listen to music that much when I'm running. I very rarely do, actually. I'll either run not listening to anything. I often have my headphones on, but I'm not listening to anything. Or I'll listen to a book or a podcast or something, like people talking to me. So I was quite amused or whatever. Maybe there's when we get so fatigued, there's a layer of whatever that's removed, and we're a little bit more able to tap into different emotions and things, or to be able to change our state quicker. Because the moment the music came on, most of my music's pretty upbeat, as I'm sure you understand. And it was like somebody flicked a switch. And I was just like, wow, it was literally like someone went from a dark room and put the light on, and there was light. Oh, wow. And to me, that was like, whoa, hold on. Why don't I use music more often in my life? Because I could use it in other places too. You know, when you're feeling a bit down or whatever, you could change your state so quickly with listening to a little bit of music. So that was cool. The number of frogs, that was another thing.
Okay. So are they like large frogs? Are we talking small frogs? Like, okay,
And what
reasonable
am I holding
size.
my hand up? So just normal size frogs, not toad size, but not tiny little ones. Like, but they were
Yeah.
everywhere. I had to, like, especially at night. Well, at night they were everywhere, all different colors, to try not to step on them.
Yeah.
And while you were doing that, I had to also try not to go through the spider webs with the big orb spiders as well. So I had to sort of sideswipe them. So it was quite an obstacle course at times at nighttime. Um, I noticed how life slows down in the dark. So even
Yeah.
though we're
Wow.
running along, but it closes in because you've just got a head torch. One of the
Yeah.
nights was quite bright because the moon was full, but most of the other nights it was a bit cloudy.
Every
The
time.
moon wasn't
Yeah.
providing much light, so you just had your head torch, and then your day so your surroundings shrink to what's around you, and that in
Yeah.
itself is quite an
Real.
interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I quite
Yeah.
like it because we don't do that a lot. We don't go outside in the dark and just wander around as a rule. At least I don't. I don't. Not unless I'm camping or something, but it's not something that's an everyday experience. And then I really love when I came across other runners, which I did quite a lot, and we'd,
Mhm.
have a chat for a while and have some trail buddies, and they say what happens on the trails or what it says or said on the trail stays on the trails. So that's
Do
always
you have a podcast and you spill all the tea?
no, and then I come on a podcast and tell everybody what everybody told me while we're
I'm just
and
joshing.
nobody would come on the podcast, Nicola. Yeah, so I loved making new trail friends. That's always really nice as well because we're all sharing the same experience and going through similar ups and downs on the trails. And just by talking to someone about it, you lighten your load a bit.
Yeah.
A few people that I knew already because of the podcast who started the race and didn't finish, and my heart breaks for them. And I just wanted to, give them a big hug, and which I did at the end of the race. Um, so you just develop relationships, and I think that's so important that we,
Yeah.
acknowledge that and give it the air that it needs.
Yeah, I think that it's just something that I've definitely acknowledged going back into a bit of running in the last few years, from stepping back from early teenage years, I suppose. But especially in that ultra space, and even maybe, I don't know if it's biased to say, even in the trail running space, I found that the community within that is just so inclusive and really sort of open armed. And although it's a solo individual sport, it really takes a community. And especially when you're in that ultra space, where you're also needing the crewing as well, there really is this camaraderie where people are coming together because you aren't in it on your own and you can't do it on your own. And it really is like a collective effort, whether it's having a chat with someone on the trail or just looking out for someone and letting someone know at the next aid station that you're worried about someone behind you so that they can keep an eye out. But really, it's just, it goes in ebbs and flows. But I think we've all personally experienced the community that the trail running has provided, and ultra space as well. Because I feel like it's not a comfort zone thing, and if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So when you are surrounded by those people that are like-minded and sort of pushing themselves to that, I don't know, further out of the comfort zone, then there's comfort in being surrounded by the community and people that are invested in helping you achieve, as you are them.
Other people as nutty as we are.
Yeah, something like that. Supposed to be something in the water. Um, all right. Most favorite moment and least favorite moment.
My most favorite moment. Oh my gosh. Your dad just said seeing him again at a train station that he was at. So yes, there was that. That was always a good thing to look out.
Feel like you sleep, or is it?
Yeah, that's right. I'm still delirious.
Is that serious at this point?
He interestingly, the van that we hired is a juicy van and no one else had one. So like from this
Oh,
company, and it's bright green juicy. So it was always
wow.
easy to find. So I knew he was here. Um there was a sunset that was amazing and a sunrise that was amazing. That was
Okay.
just superb. And I saw dolphins yesterday. That was
Wow.
also amazing. I just loved that. Um, the just coming into the aid stations, people, we've heard people talking about them over the last couple of days when we've been to presentations and things, and they would describe them as little oases out there, and it's really true. They were amazing. You can't talk them up enough. They did everything for you, so they could come down the bottom of a hill on Saturday night, really steep hill behind you, and your dad, it was at one of the few aid stations your dad wasn't able to come to, like they didn't have crew there. It wasn't that dad couldn't get there, it's just that they didn't have crew at those ones. And I came down this hill in the dark, and it felt like a couple of K of down. I don't know if it was, but my toes were hitting the front of my shoes, so my feet were sore. And I still was going to come out of that and then have to run the next leg till I got to your dad and finally could have a sleep. So I knew I had heaps ahead of me, and it was drizzly and wet and windy. And I got into this aid station, and this lady just said, "Okay, sit down." Oh, and this maybe it was a anyway, doesn't matter. And they put a blanket around my shoulders, sat me down, went and got me some food.
Aww.
And I just felt really like, because it's dark, it's like, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night or something. And I thought, because I was starting to think, how on earth am I going to get out of here? Because the hill is so steep, and it's like, and my feet are sore. And by the time I'd had my mango chicken fried rice, had an instant coffee, which I never normally drink. And I think I had Coke, and I'd been to the loo, and then that was probably about 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. I was ready, and I went up that hill, and I got to the junction once the hill was over, and I was like, "Oh, is that all it was?" It was not. I just was fine. So I don't know what they put in the food down there, but it flattens the hills for you, which was really nice.
I have heard about this chicken mango curry rice, fried rice thing a few times now.
I know. It was so good.
On in that.
It was really good. Anyway, so that was probably some of my favorite moments. Worst moments. We were going on a beach. Well, I was with Polo and Rob, and we were trying to get off the beach, and we'd had some advice from somebody, and we hadn't taken it correctly, and we were trying to leave the beach in places where we weren't supposed to, as in there was no path there. So we thought we saw a few paths off, and we'd go up there, and then it would end. But by the time we logged through soft sand for 500 meters, and then oh no, this isn't it. Come back again. Anyway, eventually we worked out, no, we're not getting off this beach, because where we get off it is actually at the very end of the beach. So we had to do this 1.5K beach, but it wasn't just an ordinary flat beach. It was a bit slopey near the water, but also with a four-wheel drive beach with soft sand. So it was full of, the tracks that four-wheel drives leave. So it was full of those really deep four-wheel drive tracks in soft sand. So that wasn't great. But then I was thinking, while I was going through it, I was like, oh, that's why people keep saying, have you done any sand training? And I was like, no, probably for that beach. Before we got to the end of that beach, it started raining. And then it was raining and windy, and it was coming in horizontal. So we had rain pelting at us, soft sand with all these four-wheel drive grooves in it, trying to get to the end of it. And then Rob says to me through the wind, he yells, "We all better get a move on. We're going to run out of time and miss the cutoff." And that was yesterday. So it was the cutoff for the whole. And we were like, but just because we'd spent so much time on that beach, just trying to move off over what was really relatively a short distance. But because of all the conditions, plus we went up in the dunes, and so that was a bit, I was like, oh God, I couldn't wait to get off that beach. So once we got off that beach, everything was pretty good, apart from, I was like, oh, those windmills over there, I think we have to go near them. And then I read some of the track directions, and it was like, oh yeah, we go around the windmill farm. That's fine. They're pretty cool. And you could see 2 or 3. So you start running towards them. They do seem a long way away, and this leg's only 20 kilometers. And I'm like, I've just done that beach and slogged. It feels like I've done 10K on the beach. Probably only did 1.5. I don't know. But the windmills feel like a long way away. I eventually get to them, and you can see 2 or 3. And it's like, okay, I'll be around these in a minute. Every single corner we went around, we looked up, and there was more windmills further on. And then so there's a windmill farm. I reckon it probably spreads out over 15 or 16 kilometers of going out over the top of these cliffs. Absolutely stunning. It was
Yeah.
drizzling off, but that was a bit not soul destroying, but it was just I had Rob's little thing in my head. We better hurry up. Like I'd left them behind at that point. I was like, oh, we've got to go. I don't want to miss it. And we anyway, I eventually got through all of that somehow. Then there was a diversion because the trail was had to be closed in one point. So the diversion took us, instead of what appeared to be maybe a kilometre, we had to go 3 or 4 or 5 kilometres around on a road, which was not fun. Might have been okay, I don't know. Anyway, this is the last day, of course. All you want to do is get it finished, and you think you've already got it in the bag, and then you realise you need going to have to get a wriggle on to get to the finish line. And then I go down a fire trail, and the fire trail is that soft, fine dirt. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a grey red color.
Yeah.
And really fine. And it gets worse than sand. It gets into everything. And then it started raining again. So now it's got this
Oh,
fine, sandy dirt that you can't get any grip in. So it's really hard to jog. It's just like, anyway, and there
yeah.
was probably 2 or 3 Ks of that. Luckily, it was all downhill that bit. So that made it a bit of a saving grace. So that some of those little things were things that were a bit bleh. And my blisters, I suppose, I also didn't like my blisters hurting so much. And
Yeah.
and when I slept, when every night when I had my 2 hours sleep, my feet ached. They ached and ached. By the time I got up in the morning, they were fine and I could run, but at the end of every section, my feet just really ached. So I don't know if that's the arthritis or something else going on in there, but they just like, ow, like beyond the blisters. They just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Jeez.
that's
Rough.
probably that. Yeah, that was it. Nothing that was insurmountable. It was all related to things external, really.
I don't know if it's just me and you, but I definitely feel like my larger runs have felt very similar coming towards the end. It feels like for every kilometre I could have sworn it was 10.
Yes, it's crazy.
And it's almost at times that you feel like you're putting in more effort than you've put into anything this far, but you seem to be going slower than ever, if not backwards.
That's right. And
So
it's supposed to be just around the corner. Where is it?
exactly, I can relate. I can relate completely. All right, anything that you would do differently?
What would I do differently? I think I need to come up with a way to protect my feet more. So I
Okay.
took 5, 6 pairs of shoes if you include my road shoes, and I did use them on one section. But I didn't use 3 of the other pairs because a pair that you gave me many years ago that you barely wore had a really wide toe box. So because my blisters were mostly on my toes, they were the only ones that I felt were going to be comfortable enough.
Yeah.
And so I basically wore the same pairs of shoes
I had the
most of
same
the
actually, which was wild because I had had those pair of shoes for actually a good few years, and I think I'd worn them once. So
They've
it
now
sounds
been going
crazy. I see you've
tree.
found a new life and now living in a tree, from what you've told
They are.
me.
They're living in a tree, so that's good. And they served me very well. So I guess I thought that I'd spent quite a bit of time putting moisturizer, or I know that I did, moisturizer on my feet every night for a month and doing things in order to try and soften it up. But I might get some professional help if I choose to do something like this again, to prepare them in a way that will be less likely to have quite as many blisters because it can be those little bits of pain, they don't necessarily stop you, but they can take away the enjoyment you might be having otherwise, just those niggly little things. So if I can reduce that,
Completely understand.
that's probably all I would do different.
Have you ever tried like lacing your feet in Vaseline? I've seen that done.
I have, yeah, somebody suggested that. I might have done that once in a training run, but I didn't do it. Like we taped them.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
taped and I used runner's wool, and which was great actually. I have a bunion and I thought, and that usually blows up on me, and it didn't this
yeah.
time. Like it still got
Okay,
up everything, but it was never painful. Whereas
yeah,
the toe ones were really painful. So
yeah. Okay, yeah. Dad told me that the runner's wall was working
yeah,
some magic on your feet when he had informed me about your blisters. So that's
yeah,
positive. All right, Mum. Drum roll.
I like that. Very professional.
I'm not sure if that's even heard in the audio, but I am giving it my best attempt.
I
The
heard it.
question we all want to know: are you or would you do it again?
Oh gosh, did I know this question was coming? I
Did you?
don't know. I really don't. Why would I do it again? I don't know. It's really interesting. It's probably too soon to answer that. because
Oh, come
it
on.
was
It's time to shine.
it was amazing. The problem is what they create here is a community that you don't want to not be a part of, but they're a long way away from where we live. So it's kind of a catch-22. So I reckon if I lived here, I would probably attempt to do it again and again. Plus, they've got some interesting marketing things that they've set up. Like if you come and do multiple ones, you get different stuff from them. Like different, you get special
You actually get a
you
pair of
get
thongs.
another thong, that's right. Instead of one thong, you get two. And I think if you do three, you get a boot, but something
Oh,
strange. I know, it's also exciting. Um,
wow.
so and I don't know, the community makes you want to come and do it again, because you just feel so supported and it's
Yeah.
something you enjoy being part of. So I don't, but at this point, I'm not sure. If you'd asked me, 48 hours ago, I'd have said, no, no, I just want to finish this. Just let me get this done. Go away. But right now, I don't know. I'm already getting the afterglow, you see. So who knows?
I feel like there's a love in asking you right now because I know when you've been around, when I've finished my larger events, one of your first questions is, well, what are you doing next? So here it's thrown straight back into your court as to, are you doing it again? So I'm kind of enjoying throwing that question back at you to see how you're going to react 48 hours or 30 odd hours on from completion.
I don't know. Like I said, no, I can't answer it. I can't answer. I don't know what I'm going to do next yet. I have to do something because I, like you or like lots of people at this time of my life, and it might change in the future, but having a goal that's ahead of me and something to train for really helps me get out the door. And I guess it helps my coach set me what to do as well. Your dad and I have thought about doing some kind of staged walks and things, not necessarily an organized thing beyond what we do. You can do them we can do them anywhere really. But there's some in Europe and South America and, well, actually here in Australia as well. So, but they're just
Yeah.
more a walk where we don't necessarily carry everything all the time. They, depending on the what you do, but go for a walk that might go for, a week or 2 or 3 weeks or something. I don't know yet though.
Yeah.
We'll see. Or I'll train for
Okay.
another very long trail run.
Sounds of it.
What was that?
To be continued. We will wait and hear what the agenda has set
Yeah.
for the up and coming
Need to find
months
another moving picnic.
that you don't want to eat when you get out there. Sounds great.
Exactly. A moving picnic where I do want to eat. There you go.
Self-sabotaging to yourself, you can only fool yourself so much.
That's
That's
great.
what I'm finding anyway with different foods for long runs is you can want and desire it as much as you want before a run. It doesn't mean you want it during the run.
It's true. Yeah.
All right. One piece of advice for new runners. Isn't that our question that we throw out each time? If that's still
Well,
something.
I don't say one, but yes.
Okay. A piece of advice for up and coming runners, new runners.
Up and coming ultra new runners, I would suggest
Yep.
trying
Go for it.
raisin bread. Your dad made me raisin bread with butter, and I think it got me through the first half because I could take it and walk as I was leaving the aid station as well, and it was a bit moister than say just Vegemite and bread or anything else with bread, but because of the raisins there and the butter.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that doesn't really necessarily go there. Up and coming tips for people who want to start running, I would say work out why you want to do it.
Yeah.
And remind yourself every day of why you're doing it and what your reasons are. Get a good
Okay.
pair of shoes and head out the door. And find some people to run with because that always helps.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've got anything to counter that. I sometimes like running with people, but other times I do not like running with people.
That's
Pardon?
what I meant. That's what I did both. I ran with people and I didn't run with people.
Yep. And then at one point I couldn't find my headphones and I had no one to run with while you were being gone. I let Mum borrow my shocks and I listened to myself pant for a few kilometres, which was quite fun.
That's good for you. You got to be mindful.
It's not that good. It's quite horrible to listen to be honest. Yeah, well done, Mum. I think that not only from the family perspective, but all your friends and acquaintances within the running community can obviously say that they are very proud of what you've achieved and what an incredible feat it is. I mean, I don't know how many people have run a 200-mile, let alone a 350-kilometer run.
You got that.
But we are incredibly proud. It's nothing to be, I don't know, it's incredible. I don't know how to say it. It's nothing to brush over. It's a great achievement, and really it just shows dedication, a strength that's just unfathomable. It's incredible.
It's possible for anybody.
Lost for words when I try to describe how proud I am of this achievement for you.
Thank you, darling.
You definitely let us all know that it's so attainable, and your strength and your capacity to do these events is just incredible.
Thank you.
Power woman. Watch out, world.
Well, anybody, it's especially you, because you're my daughter, but anybody who wants to do anything like this, they just have to work out what the steps are for them, in particular, to get there and put them in place. It's really simple.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just putting into those steps that we can all see as attainable. It's definitely helped me in the past. Not that I've taken anything like this on, but
not yet.
A few that I have. Yeah. A few that
you also need to get a good support crew.
Yeah. Yep. Simon Frost is going pretty cheap at the moment. I don't believe he's got anything in the calendar. Might be asleep on the hammock from time to time, but otherwise pretty reliable.
Why are you laughing then?
I'm just going off your reference, not mine. Mine that was didn't even notice me for most of mine, but that's mine. We'll work on it. No, thanks for having me, Mum, and thanks for letting me interview you after such a great achievement that I think we're all very loud and proud and really astonished, but also not surprised.
Thank you, Nikki. I really appreciate you jumping on here and interviewing me, and so we can get this out and move on to the next thing. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your little bit of humour and wit with us as well to interview me. It's always really fun to do so.
Thanks, Mum. It's tough that you asked.
Thank you. All right. We'll talk to you soon, everyone. Thank you.
See ya.
And that's a wrap for another Delirious West athlete update. A huge thank you to the athletes for sharing their journeys, and to you, our listeners, for joining us on this delirious adventure. Remember, it's not just about the finish line. It's about the journey, the community, and the moments that keep us moving forward. Keep rooting for our runners and tune in for next month's check-ins to see how their training is unfolding. If you're enjoying this series, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a review and share the podcast with your friends. Let's all get a little delirious together. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode or an update. Connect with us on the website, on Facebook, or on Instagram. And we'd love to hear your stories and support you on your running journey. Stay strong, stay motivated, and keep pushing your limits. Until next time.